At the 2019 World Junior Championships, the preliminary round is now completed and the quarterfinals are all completely set to get underway here tomorrow on January the 2nd. In this video, we're going to preview the quarterfinal matchups and I'll give you my predictions. We'll discuss all that coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams as well as international tournaments. So if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, the quarterfinals are all set to go at the 2019 World Junior Championships. So we're going to take a look at who qualified for the quarterfinals, and I'll give you my thoughts and predictions on who's going to win those games and head on to the semifinals here. Before we jump into today's video, I just want to take a quick second here, wish everybody a very happy new year. Of course, I hope everybody also had a very fun and safe New Year's Eve. And also, this is our first video for 2019, and I can't wait to see what 2019 brings us here at Top Shelf Hockey. I can't wait to have many great hockey conversations with you throughout the entire year. So with that being said, let's jump into today's video and take a look at the 2019 World Junior Championship quarterfinal matchups. Now, the first matchup we're going to take a look at here is Team Sweden battling Team Switzerland. Now, of course, as we know, Team Sweden was able to maintain their streak all the way through the preliminary round to get through here and can maintain that streak that's been going for about 12 years now of not losing any preliminary games. They had a good scare against the U.S. in their third game of the preliminary round, but they were able to come back, win that game in overtime, and then, of course, they won their final game here as well. So that streak now sits at 48 consecutive games, which is incredibly impressive. Obviously, that would be even more impressive if they had more gold medals to their record here, and, of course, they're going to keep striving here to see if they can add one to the mix this year. Now, back in for Team Sweden, Erik Brandstrom has been absolutely dynamite. He's been their captain, their leader, their offensive juggernaut back there, and Adam Boqvist has been just as good along with him as well. Like I mentioned in the preview before the tournament got underway, those two guys were really going to dictate the pace for Team Sweden and really drive much of the offense from that back blue line. And that's exactly what they've been doing. They're going to be a handful. Now, of course, on Switzerland's side, you've got Philipp Kurashev, who's been one of the tournament's most dynamic players. He's been putting up all kinds of goals, looked really strong. By far their best player and one of the best performances and players in this tournament as well. So, of course, if Switzerland has any fighting chance against the Swedes, they're going to need him to continue that dynamic play. But, of course, in my opinion here, my prediction for this matchup is Sweden is just a little bit too strong for the Swiss, and we're going to see Sweden carry on here and move on to the semifinals. Now, I can see this game maybe being a little bit closer than some might gather, but I would still expect Sweden to win by, a decent margin here. I can imagine Sweden popping in at least 4 or 5 goals on the Swiss team. So we'll see what happens, but my prediction, I'm calling Team Sweden to beat Team Switzerland and advance to the semifinals. Next game here, we got Team Slovakia battling Team Russia. Now, of course, Russia was able to beat Team Canada on New Year's Eve and complete their 4-0 record here in the preliminary round. So, of course, they're undefeated, the top team in their group. So they had the right to play Slovakia, whereas, of course, with Canada losing, that drops them in playing against Team Finland here, which we'll preview here in just a moment. Of course, this is a little bit of a mismatch in my opinion. I do think the Russians are going to win this game rather handily. They've had all kinds of great performances. Their goaltender was absolutely fantastic against Team Canada, robbed the Canadian forwards on many occasions. Their goaltending was a huge reason why they were able to get that victory for sure. It's a very tightly contested 2-1 hard-fought victory on the Russians' part. Now, for Team Russia, they've got a trio of dynamic forwards up front with some experience on their side, including Kostin, Kravtsov, and Denisenko. They've been absolutely terrific for this team. And youngster Vasily Podkolzin has also been tremendous as well. So this Russian team, I do think, will be a little bit too much for Slovakia to handle. I can see not only the Russians winning, but I can see them taking this game rather easily by a wide margin. They have the goaltending to back it up for the Slovaks. When they do get the chances, they're going to have a tough goalie to beat. And like I said, they have all kinds of forwards who are dangerous as well. Now, early in the tournament, I thought the Russians kind of looked a little bit, I'm not sure how to describe it, just disinterested, like just not into it as much. That full effort forward or something, and it just seemed to be, not quite on track early on in this tournament. But they were able to go undefeated, and they really didn't look like they truly woke up until they got, later into the tournament, especially against Team Canada. So if they can go undefeated and look that way early in the tournament, I can just imagine now that they're fully engaged here and ready to roll into the, to the knockout round, I can imagine they're going to be a handful for just about any team here. So the Russians, in my opinion, are going to be one of the favorites to win this tournament, and I can certainly see them going over Slovakia rather easily. Now, of course, as I mentioned, the Canada-Russia game was a very, tightly contested matchup. It was a 2-1 victory. Team Canada unfortunately dropped that game, which caused them to face Finland in the next round. So it's, Finland's definitely a tougher opponent, I think, than the Slovaks. Don't no disrespect to the Slovaks, but I think the Finns have a stronger team. Will give Team Canada certainly a much more tougher competition to make it through to the semifinals. But with that Canada-Russia game on New Year's Eve is was highly entertaining for sure. But on Canada's part, they certainly let their emotions get the best of them. We saw early on captain and forward Max Comtois get called a couple times for embellishment. A few times Team Russia was getting a penalty, but he got called as well for embellishment. And as a fellow Canadian, I was not very pleased with his play early on in that game. Later throughout the game, he kind of corrected that behavior and kind of got his emotions in check. But it was too little too late. They couldn't get that tying goal. Russia got the leading goal here about halfway through the third period, and Team Canada just could not muster up the offense to get it tied up near the end. I must say as well, I was a little bit not overly impressed with Evan Bouchard, of course, top draft pick and defenseman for the Edmonton Oilers. I do think, in my opinion, that his skating ability, which was scrutinized a lot during the draft as one of his weaknesses, to me really stood out against a very quick and dynamic Russian team. I really think he needs to get back to working on his skating on the defensive side of the puck. And even on the offensive side of the puck, that creativity that he normally has just wasn't quite there. So they certainly need better performances out of them. But for Oilers fans, in my opinion, Bouchard has a ton of potential. He can certainly be a power play quarterback back there. That skating ability has really shone through as a weakness, in my opinion, in that Russian game. And I hope for Team Canada's sake that against the Finns, that they might give a guy like Noah Dobson or Ty Smith a little bit more time on the power play and swap things up and not, maybe give Bouchard a little bit of a break, because as good as Bouchard is, some of these other guys have certainly earned that opportunity as well to run that power play. So Team Canada battling Team Finland will certainly be a very tightly contested matchup. Now, in pre-tournament play, Team Finland actually did beat Team Canada. It was the only game that the Canadians lost. So I do think the Finns can certainly give them a good run. They've got an excellent goaltender. Luukkonen's been tremendous throughout this tournament. They've got some very dynamic forwards. They've got some capable defensemen. They're a pretty well-rounded team, even though they lost a couple games in the preliminary round. You certainly can't count them out at all. But if Team Canada can get their emotions in check and get back to playing how they were playing in the first three games of this tournament, I do think they can beat Team Finland. It looks as though Canada's likely going to continue to lean on goaltender Michael DiPietro. I thought he was tremendous against the Russians. He made a lot of big saves, keeping them in that game. Give them a chance to win for sure. They've got a lot of dynamic defenders. Of course, they had Jarek McIsaac sitting out the game against Russia due to a suspension from a high hit, but he will be able to return against the Finns as well. Out of all the quarterfinal matchups, I think Canada versus Finland will be the most tightly contested matchup out of the four. I think it'll be the closest game by far. They certainly do match up very well. I would not be completely shocked if the Finns can pull out a victory, but I'm going to give the prediction here. Being a Canadian, call me biased if you want in this case, but I do think Team Canada will pull out a victory here, but it will be very tightly contested, and I can see this game, going down to the wire third period, maybe even some overtime as well. The final matchup here is going to be Team Czech Republic battling Team USA. Of course, the Czech Republic team, in my opinion, hasn't looked overly good. I really haven't been all that impressed with guys like Zadina and Nikash and Martin Kaut. Like early in the tournament, they kind of looked okay, but the last couple of games, they just really haven't shown up, in my opinion. I've been very disappointed, especially with Filip Zadina amongst all of them, by far the most. This is a really good opportunity for him to really shine. And, considering how high he was drafted last year and the skill level that he's expected to have, I really thought he should be able to shine as one of the top players in this tournament. And there's been a few games where you hardly even hear his name being called by the announcers at all, because he's just not really into it. I'm not sure what's going on with him, but he just has not been impressive at all. I've been very disappointed with Zadina's play. Now, of course, the U.S. has been without star forward Jack Hughes. Of course, he's projected to be the 2019 number one overall pick, and he's been out for the last 3 games. Now, of course, there is, projected like he will play the next game, but they've said that pretty well every other game, that he's been sitting out for precautionary reasons, but he's yet to join, for the tournament here after playing the opening game. So we'll see what happens if Jack Hughes is in the lineup. But even without Jack Hughes, guys like Josh Norris and Ryan Poehling, Joel Farabee, and others have been really picking up the slack, scoring lots of goals and getting the U.S. on track. They've got some pretty good defensemen back there as well. They've got an excellent goaltender, and I do think U.S., even with or without Jack Hughes, the USA will beat the Czech Republic and go on to the semifinals. Now, of course, if that happens, you'll see Team Canada battle Team USA, and then you'll also see Team Russia battle Team Sweden. And of course, that would set up some very interesting and epic semifinal matchups for sure, so to see who would battle for the gold. So that is your 2019 World Junior Championship quarterfinal preview, along with my predictions for who's going to win those 4 matchups. Of course, down in the comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts on who you think is going to win those matchups, and we can compare and continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel here, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up before you go. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.